Greetings, GameCola faithful, and welcome to the GameCola podcast. This is podcast number 184, and you're feeling the voice crack that I just made right into your core. I am your host and podcast commander, Joseph Martin, joined by...
I'm Blu Ryder, and my voice isn't cracking yet.
I'm John Rizzi. My voice is also not cracking, but I did shudder when I heard Joe do that. My God.
What are you talking about? This is just how I sound. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, God, feel that in my spine.
Are you ready to play some video
games?
games and talk? A lot of talking.
I am Crusty the Clown.
Games.
I am Crusty the Clown. What do we want to talk about?
That's not what Krusty the Clown sounds like. What are you talking about?
That's what he sounds like in my head.
Well, then that's not a very good joke, John. If it only makes sense to you in your own little mental space world, then it's not a very good joke, is it?
You know, I did have a good example in mind, but I literally could not think of the name, and Crusty the Clown is what came out of my mouth.
I feel like it's more like King Candy. It's closer to that, but without like the
That is
lisp.
exactly who I was thinking.
Yeah, it's a little more like this. If you want to be like a King Candy kind of person, it's a little more like this. Whereas I was more talking like this, hitting the low notes a little bit more. Anyway, video games. You know what's about video games?
Kingdom Hearts Birth Union Cross, where King Candy was in it.
Kingdom Hearts Birth Union Cross.
I meant to say Union Cross. I almost.
I
said
mean,
Birth
but
by
like,
Sleep.
it could also be the name of a Kingdom Hearts game.
No.
Like if you didn't know.
Yes, it can.
Like that. Yeah.
We've been over this.
Because you know what we're not talking about? Is
Candy.
The Game Awards. Because I don't know about them, and I don't find myself particularly caring. Maybe this is because we do our own awards, and I care more about those in 6 months. Or I guess
better.
We call that
more
vanity,
like 7.
Joe.
But yes, so there's an aspect of that. But I don't know. It just hasn't. The hype has not caught up with me, and it just seems like people are mad, and I don't really care to just be mad with them.
And
so we're going to talk about something different.
It happens
unless
with every
John is
award
about to
show.
say something.
No, I'm just saying that happens with every award show. Is that the hype doesn't really settle in until like the day of or something, and even then, it's just more like I'm excited for the announcements, not for the actual awards.
Well, it was more interesting when we
Commercials.
were literally the only website who managed to figure out the infrastructure to live cast. Back before like live streaming was a thing, where we did like a live cast of the Game Awards on the website.
Yeah, it was a fun night. I was there for that. Little middle schooler me.
But no, the topic I wanted to talk about today is playing video games incorrectly. We've all done this. And sometimes it seems like, what, you mean being bad at video games? No. Sometimes people play video games incorrectly in a way where they're very good at the video game. I'm talking about speedruns. I'm talking about Nuzlocks. I'm talking about challenge runs, more generally speaking. Playing a video game in a way that was not like the generally accepted intended way to play the video game. How do we feel about these things?
Positive. Next question.
I feel no, they're fun. It's like it's always very interesting to find a creative way to like get through a game that was not intended. So like say a speed run, or let's play through because I'm vain and can only think of one example. Let's play through Kingdom Hearts without leveling up. It's zero experience points. Let's see if we can get to the end where every enemy will one-shot us every single time.
It is interesting, though, that there's like categories that can kind of like transcend games and genres, and then some that are like hyper-specific, right? Like basically almost any game can have a speed run of some kind. Really, the only ones that can't are ones where it's like, how long can you last type of games, where there's not necessarily like a credits or an end state.
FNAF.
But even games like Minecraft, right? Like Minecraft it does have quote unquote an end, but also like it's meant to be a pretty open-ended game. But then you have like on the other side, like I said, Nuzlocks, which are like very specific to the mechanics of Pokemon. Though I have seen videos where people try to like take other like RPGs or monster collecting RPGs and try to like get the characteristics of a Nuzlocke where like, you know, if a party member dies, then like that's it. You can't revive them. And that's really the main thing. That the catching only the first Pokemon you see on a route doesn't really translate very well.
I've seen people do that with Smash Brothers Ultimate, like the Roll of Light campaign, where they make a Nuzlocke out of it.
Yeah, that's one way.
Can get very
Smash Brothers
intense.
is another interesting example, though, because here I'll put a little spin on it, right? What about making a game competitive when it wasn't necessarily originally intended to be a competitive game? Smash is in sort of a weird state where it's like it's sort of structured like a competitive game, and now it's a little bit more balanced to take that in consideration. But there were periods of its history where it was like we're very specifically not making this game good to like we're not thinking about what makes a good competitive game for this game. We're thinking about what makes a good party game.
Yes,
and like
Smash Melee is a great example of that because the entire competitive scene around that game specifically revolves around glitches. Just like the whole mobility that you see people do competitively. It's like, you cannot
Isn't
do
wave
this.
Dashing a glitch or not intended?
Everyone's
Cool.
wave dashing or like frame killing animations and whatnot. You play the game normally. It's like, it feels stiff. But everyone's like, no, it's so loose. It's so free. You can do whatever you want in it. It's like, yeah, if I break my hand on the controller, give myself carpal tunnel every single time. But yeah, no, it's still impressive to see like what you can pull off just because it was like, oh, they forgot to fix this frame killing glitch for the animations and whatnot. It's insane. And it's fun to see like future games take that in consideration because half of the entire like Smash Ultimate like Direct was about like how the mechanics of the game are fundamentally changed and make it more fun and competitive.
It's also interesting, though, because, like, Melee exists in most opposition, I think, to the... however you could quantify creator intent. Like, Nintendo doesn't want people to be playing Super Smash Bros. Melee anymore. They want them to stop.
No, because...
they don't like it.
No, yeah, because it's like they stream it online, and then people are like, oh, what's this game? This looks fun. I want to buy it. And they can't. But you can buy them, so they want them to buy the newest one so they can...
Right.
Yeah.
So
stream the newest one, please.
That's sort of funny. But then also like Pokemon Showdown, right? Like there's all these different formats that are like where the rules are kind of put in place by people, even aside from the fact that it's a browser thing. But, you know, the games, the competitive part of the game is designed around the 2 versus 2 double battle format. But people still want to play like singles because that kind of more, which is like just 1 versus 1 teams of 6, because that more emulates what you have access to in the video game. But things aren't balanced around that anymore. So like they have to go through this like whole process of like banning and voting on banning Pokemon so that they can balance it themselves because the Pokemon company isn't going to. There's another angle on this that I want to throw into the mix, which is like playing a video game, not even just like as a challenge, but just like not playing the game in the way that it was intended. I'm going to give an example here, which is like when you're playing Mega Man. Some people play Mega Man and they don't use any of the special weapons except on the bosses to use their weaknesses. They're not doing it as a challenge. They're just like, that's the way that they want to play the Mega Man game. And...
Not even a Mega Buster only run, just like a random weapon run.
Right, because it's not like they only use the Mega Buster. They use the boss weapon. They use the weapons, special weapons, for the bosses usually in these cases, like to use them as the boss weaknesses. So it's not like a challenge thing. It's like I'm just going to use the Mega Buster, and then like you'll watch them play it, and they just like use the Mega Buster the whole time basically, and you're like, I mean, if you're having fun, sure. But it seems weird to me. But, like, you know, if people are having fun, they're having fun. But I feel like the most frustrating thing is, like, when someone is clearly playing a game in a way that's, like, not really how you're meant to play it, to the extent that you can know that about a game, but they're mad and complaining. And you're like, well, You could. This
did this
feels
to-
like a very solvable problem if you just
did
play the
this.
video game the right way, right?
You
If you're having fun playing it a different way, then sure, go for it. But like, if you're playing it bad, you're playing, and I'm being funny when I say bad in that sense. But like, if you're playing it like clearly not using everything in the game that's being set up for you. Right? It's like saying like, oh, this game's so hard. And it's like, well, have you used any of the healing items? It's like, no, I'm not going to use healing items. What do you think I am? Some kind of chump? And it's like, okay, but like, maybe they balanced the video game around you using the healing items.
I had this exact issue with, experience, that's a better word, with Hogwarts Legacy, because when it comes to RPGs, that's like, it has so many mechanics, but it's like, the combat is basically like Arkham combat, like to an extent. So I kind of just got used to that. I didn't like use
Do you
items.
have homing fists like in Arkham, where like you punch and your like entire body just homes in on a person?
Well, you have magic, so you just do it with.
Do you have magic punches, John?
Yes, you do.
Then do those magic punches make you approach a person from 50 meters away and make sure that you run your fist into their face?
It makes me shoot them in the face from 50 meters away.
With your fist?
With whatever comes out of the wand.
I said magic punches.
I mean, essentially, when you flick a wand in someone's face, it's the equivalent of punching them in the face.
I don't agree.
John, I think you're really wrong about this one.
Anyway, stylistic and design-wise, it feels a lot like Arkham Combat. But there's also, in this huge Hogwarts game, there's like many other mechanics you can do. You can craft potions. You can catch creatures that will also craft healing items for you if you come back every now and then. And there are so many ways you could stack up on healing items where you could never die. Makes every boss fight a joke, and just completely overpower yourself. And I didn't do that. It was like, and I just played through the game, not even brute forcing, just doing like Arkham style combat the entire time, not even worrying about healing items and whatnot. And I found the final boss to be pretty challenging. I even told my friends, like, oh yeah, this final boss took me like maybe 2 hours to get through, because the timing for its attacks like really threw me off, and like I found it really tough. And then half my other friends who played the game, it's like, what are you talking about? That was so easy. Did you have any healing items? I'm like, no, because I never made any, because I never really needed them until that fight. But yeah.
But like, you were having fun, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the difference. It's like when people, I mean, I think this is usually people who are like playing a video game for like a show or something where they're not going to be spending a lot of time on it. When you're like, you're allowed to not like the game, but it's just like, you have so many misconceptions about it that it's like, it doesn't feel like apt criticism. It just feels like you're not engaging with the game, right? It's like, well, this story wasn't good because I read only every other word and it like didn't make any sense. And it's like, well, yes.
Well, first
it's like,
off,
well, what,
how?
you're challenging? What, can I not play the video? Can I not read the book the way that I want to? And it's like, well, you can, but like at a certain point, you're like changing the art so much that the original, like, there's only so much that you can separate the art from the artist. And when it comes to like how to specifically mechanically consume the work, not like what frame of mind you need to be in, but like if I make a video game and A is the jump button, I'm going to assume that people aren't going to be morally opposed to pressing the A button. And if that doesn't work for you, like, I mean, yes, there's like key remapping, right? So
the A button
in
killed
some
my
sense there's
family.
that. But like, there's a difference between not being able to press the A button and like someone who deliberately chooses not to press the jump button, regardless of where it is mapped to, is probably a better analogy in this case. But then like there are people who play Super Mario 64 with trying to use the jump button as few times as possible.
Oh,
But
yeah.
like the process of that is like they're having fun, and they would never say like, they would never, like if someone said,
This is the
hey,
way to play the game.
right, because right now they're doing the, Super Mario 64 with minimum A presses using, First, we have to talk about parallel universes.
Classic video.
If anyone in there were, imagine like people in that saying, because we have not yet figured out, and we've had to spend so much time trying to figure out a way to beat Mario 64 without ever pressing the A button, it's a bad video game. If it was a good video game, we would have been able to figure out how to play it without pressing the A button, without pressing the jump button. And it's like, that's sometimes what I feel like I encounter at certain levels of I should be able to play a video game how I want. And like when it's in the privacy of your own home and you're kind of like, well, if you want to have a bad time on purpose, I guess that's your prerogative. Goodness knows, GameCola, we don't quite do this, but we do have a tendency to play video games that we don't like.
No.
But when you talk about it
Hi, Jetty.
on the internet, I feel like you have at least a tiny little bit of responsibility to like engage with the game on the level it is presenting itself to you.
Yeah, especially if you're, I mean, it's one thing if you're streaming for yourself, but if you have like an audience and whatnot, it's like, you gotta, if you want to make them engaged, you have to be engaged yourself.
Or at least just not complain about it
Yeah.
to other people. You know what I mean? Anyway, let's talk about more positive though. I'm trying to think. Let's think about all the different ways. Well, there's another angle.
I got one for you. I've got
one.
one.
You didn't get to talk about playing video games, Ron.
What? No, we're still talking about playing video games.
Oh, I thought you were like, let's move on.
This is the point B, the next bullet point in that topic. You want to go, Joe? Or
I did podcasting wrong.
Well, I was just saying, like, one of the ways this paradigm kind of changed a bit was the introduction of achievements, right? Like, achievements were put in place to reward you for playing the video game wrong in certain ways, right? Like, oh, I'm going to... Some of it is, like, not necessarily playing it wrong, but not necessarily also an explicit goal, right?
Yeah,
like,
there's some, like,
imposing
find all the
extra
collectibles.
Constraints on you.
Find all the collectibles, get to level 99, stuff like that.
Yeah, or like, beat the game without getting a game over, right? Like, which effectively, like, if you're trying to accomplish that, it means that, like, if you get a game over, you have to start over, which is like a way that the game could have been designed, right? Like, it could have been, like, a Mega Man game could have been designed that it deletes all your progress.
There's an exact achievement for that in Kingdom Hearts 1, where you can't, whenever you die, you have to, like, reload a game. You can't hit continue, which starts you off at a different checkpoint.
So, like, there's that angle of it. And also, like, beat this boss with this weapon or something like that. And that sort of changed, in a way, it almost legitimized. And I do wonder how that had an effect on how people conceptualize stuff like this. Because also, like, there's some speedrun type stuff in that, too. Like, there's definitely been games that have, like, achievements where it's like, beat the game in this amount of time, right? And I do wonder how that kind of change the way people think about challenge runs or certain kinds of accomplishments in games, because there's another angle of it that you can make it argue that, like, I think I remember Nathaniel Hoover, who's been on the Dragon Warrior playthrough recently, and so you should be familiar with him by now if you should be watching the Dragon Warrior playthrough, but he's put it really well once, not in the Dragon Warrior playthrough, of like, sometimes something that feels like a cool challenge can almost have the wind taken out of it if an achievement is there for it, because then the achievement is saying that, like, this should be something that you should be able to do. And if it's like something really hard, like beat the game without taking damage, and it's a Mega Man game where there's lots of opportunities for you to take damage and in game very little penalty for it, then it can kind of like ruin, because then it's like, well, now it just feels like a checkbox that I'm trying to check off, and it doesn't really feel like worth it. Like, it doesn't feel like a bonus thing that I'm deciding to do of my own volition. It feels like something that's being asked of me. And I feel like where achievements are best is in this vein is when they get you to think about playing the game in a way that you would not have thought of yourself, right? Like, realizing, like, I'll use, again, using Mega Man as an example, like using a weapon to defeat a certain boss that, like, isn't their weakness, and so, but, like, maybe changes the character of the fight, like how you have to navigate the fight in an interesting way. Like, those are the kinds of achievements where they, like, these small scale, like, play the game incorrectly, quote unquote. That I think, when it's inspiration rather than just itemizing a set of basic challenges that basically anyone could think of.
There's a lot of games that like are self-aware of this too, like especially like more modern designs and whatnot. Like, I don't want to bring up Kingdom Hearts again, but it's a good example of this. But let's say like Hollow Knight, where it's like you play the game normally, you get to the boss, you get the credits, woohoo, and then there's so much more like optional content that's like harder bosses or cryptic secrets and whatnot, and the only way to surpass them is to think about the game the way it's designed and how it's designed in a totally new way than what you've been doing for the main story and whatnot. And I think that's a very creative way to like get more value out of the game that you bought, and also to just introduce like, I guess, concepts of game design as well, because my favorite boss fights in, let's say, Kingdom Hearts 2, like the Lingering Will fight, that is like
William, get out of here.
The Lingering William,
we don't want
yes.
you here.
Lingering William versus Michael Mouse, yes. But it's such a hard fight where he's pretty much invulnerable except for like a small amount of time, where in between like attack animations that the computer will randomly decide to bring out. But there's such a small window where you have to basically master the game's mobility controls. And it's like, oh, how can I get over there as fast as possible? I can do the double jump, I can do the roll, the thing, or you can do like a whole bunch of other combinations and whatnot. And I don't know, it's just that the way that fight is designed, it just makes you think about the combat and the mobility and how to combine it all into like, oh, this is how the game was actually designed from the get-go. Because the main story is so easy, you can pretty much brute force your way through it. Because it's a game for kids, because they're going to do that anyway. They're not going to think about, oh, if I heal at this time, or if I take this hit, that'll give me more chance to do it. Except they're not thinking about that. They're just thinking about, I want to get to the credits. I want to beat this guy. But yeah, that's such a fun way to look at it.
Blue, have you played a video game incorrectly before?
Yeah, I have. There's the one recent one, which might technically not count, but it was funny. In the current Resident Evil remake, James keeps telling me to shoot. I heavily encourage you to shoot this zombie, and then I don't, and I just walk past it. And that's a lot of fun. I really like randomizers. Randomizers are great in most games.
You took my topic.
Yeah, if you can make them happen. That's actually, like editing the game in order to play it the wrong way. I didn't even think about that angle.
And then there's Pokemon Infinite Fusion, which has a randomizer mode. So that's like, if you do a Nuzlocke in that, that's like 3 layers of doing it wrong. And that's a lot of fun.
There can be having done randomizers specifically for Pokemon, like there's a certain level where it's like, this is so random that there's like no information here. Like,
well, if you do that on a map randomizer.
Yeah, well then, that's where like I've seen those where like each door, or any sort of like place where there would be a screen transition just takes you to a random place.
Yeah, and
I've seen
there's
that with some,
Kingdom
like,
Hearts
2D
randomizers too for
Yeah.
John, and there's Legend of Zelda ones, and
Yep, I've seen plenty of Ocarina ones. I've seen plenty for Resident Evil. Which Resident Evil is, going back to my thing, Resident Evil is also a game that's like all the achievements are designed to mastering the game's mechanics in a way you weren't thinking about before, because it's like, beat the game within 2 hours, and you're like, excuse me? That's possible?
yeah, and one thing I have wanted to do for a while, I was going to do it a few years ago when I had more time, but then things fell apart a bit. I haven't seen this anywhere on YouTube, and I mean, it maybe exists, but I think I might be the first one to think of it, I was gonna do X-Men Legends 1 and 2 and Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2 with a Nuzlocke in place, so if a character dies, I can't use them. And 2 of those games, you can mod in, so I had a big wheel of random mod characters that I was gonna spin, and I was gonna mod them in and have a random roster and have a random team where possible and run through all 4 of those games in a Nuzlocke, and that sounds like fun.
That does sound fun.
I
In
still
fact,
want to do that.
that sounds like so much fun that I'm
Okay,
proposing
cool.
we...
Well, maybe you can help me record it sometime.
Record it. I want to help you play it because I'm pretty sure you can play those on Parsec, the PC versions of.
That is a very good point, and it would help make X-Men Legends a lot easier, because you can definitely softlock yourself in that game.
And that also, that game is really hard. I think that's the hardest out of all
It is
4 of them.
very hard. I was doing practice runs back then, and I was like, why is this so much harder than when I was a child?
And the answer was it wasn't easier when you were a child.
You
just had so much more patience for an acceptance of failure. Adults
No,
aren't allowed to
that
accept
sounds like the
failure.
opposite of how I've turned out.
Well, that's the thing. When you grow up, you become more obsessed with your failure because you don't have as much time to be successful every time.
True,
You
but I'm
inch
also
slowly forward.
much better with failure now. I don't take it as the end of the world. So
Because you've channeled it all into video games.
the greatest
It's
teacher
a
of
coping
failure
mechanism.
just
Welcome
to get
back
through
to
the
Blues
day.
Therapy.
Welcome to
Where-
GameCola TED Talks, where...
Okay. Randomizers are a really interesting way of doing it. Like Zelda randomizers, I feel like are also really popular.
Yeah, and there's so
Pokemon
many different ways to
randomizers.
do them that you like. I know the Pokemon ones, they even have like different modes and stuff and lots
Yeah.
of customization, because you can do items, including like key items, you can do the maps, you can do the encounters, you can do so many different things and combinations of those things. It's amazing. I love randomizers.
What are some other ones? The Zelda and Pokemon are the big ones that I know of.
Kingdom Hearts is pretty big on those.
Yeah, it
Okay.
really is. And then Resident Evil, of course. I think other games like Resident Evil. I think Retroidvania.
I assume there's 1,000
I
Skyrim
bet,
mods that do
I've-
that.
Or like
I don't know.
Metroidvania
Oh,
type
yeah.
games.
I've definitely
Definitely
have a
those.
lot.
Yeah, I've definitely seen one for Super Metroid, and I've definitely seen one for Symphony of the Night as well.
For some reason, I thought you said Cynthia of the Night.
Cynthia of the Night. She's out there. I know it.
She's out there somewhere, but only when it's dark. I did remember another angle on this. Have you ever seen people play like bingo races, where like there's this set of like particular individual like challenges?
Oh.
Like maybe it's like a beat this level, and it's like a game where you can go to any level that you want.
No, I haven't.
And
But that sounds like fun too.
And so, like, you get, like, a random board, and, like, maybe you both get the same random board, and you try to figure out who can fill out the bingo card the fastest.
That sounds
and so,
like
maybe
fun.
you might have, like, you're racing to the same thing, but instead of, like, you might have different strategies on how to accomplish that. So, like, the two people that you're watching do it may do it in a slightly different way.
Yeah, no, the closest to that is when I did Infinite Fusion randomizer race with a friend.
Were there any rules?
I think we used, it was a Nuzlocke, and we used the same... No, actually, I think we used different... I can't remember. We did something. We both randomized our games and then tried to see who could finish it first.
How long does it take to beat?
I don't know, because we didn't finish.
I was gonna say, it seems like that seems like a little bit long to do. Like, the game seems pretty long itself.
Well, how long is Pokemon Fire Red?
I mean, just like if you're a normal guy or a speedrunner, like there's a difference there. I mean, it's like several hours at least, if not longer.
Yeah.
But like Pokemon Infinite Fusion, I felt like was longer than like Fire Red.
I think, it's like the base game is sort of Fire Red, you know? I think it's the same
I don't know.
Kanto map.
Whenever I do like a Nuzlocke of Fire Red, it usually takes me a few days. But I guess I spend more time grinding to make sure that I'm like leveled properly.
Yeah, that is
for
why he got ahead of me, is because I was leveling equally, but I'm pretty sure he's more one of those people who is like, I have my starter, I'm going to keep that in front the entire time, and now everything is lower level than it, and I can't do that.
Average playtime, Pokemon Fire Red, for just main story content's about 30 hours. But everyone like levels up and whatnot, so it's mainly around like 50 hours. And then completion is 146 hours.
Good enough.
What does completionist mean in this context?
All
Catch 'em all.
Pokemon.
Gotta
How
catch
do
'em
you
all.
factor in like trades from other games though?
Those take about 5 minutes? I don't know.
But you have to like get like someone still has to play the video game. Like, can you? I
Yeah.
don't think I could beat Fire Red in 0 minutes and 0 seconds if I can count someone else plays Fire Red for me.
Well, no, you still have,
actually,
you'd have to get to a point where you can trade them, and you can't do that at the beginning, right?
Right, but I'm saying
this
like
listing is combined Fire Red and Leaf Green.
Oh.
that doesn't make any sense.
Oh.
That's measuring the speed of a game incorrectly, along with playing a video game incorrectly.
Well, it took Ash
just read it yourself.
10 years. How many? No, wait, way more than
John,
10 years.
it's something on the internet. I don't have to believe you. I don't have to believe that it's true.
How many
Just
decades
because
did
someone
it take
wrote
Ash
it on
to
the
be a
internet
Pokemon
doesn't make
master?
it true axiomatically. What are some other ways we can play video games wrong?
Let's see.
Play your video game upside down.
No, that's correct in Pokemon. You have to do that to catch them all.
I buy them and put them
That's
on
a
my
good point.
shelf and don't play them for a while. Is that
That
one?
is-
That is
that's a
also
good one.
put them in your Steam library and just let them sit and rot.
You order them from limited run games and expect them to arrive on time.
Well, on time.
No, I
is
didn't
subjective.
get John with that one. That was
No,
funny.
you got me. You got me.
I just did
But-
my first one. I'm waiting for Clock Tower.
Oh, dude, I'm still waiting on my order. I ordered that too. Oh my god, I just got a shipping email from that like this week. I'm like, didn't I order this like 5 months ago?
I don't think I've heard anything about mine. I'm kind of worried that they lost it. Like I think I got one email from a Purple something, which is how they do
Yeah,
it.
that's their shipping company.
And then it said, here's your tracking page, and I went to it, and it was like, we can look at this, sorry, it doesn't exist.
That happens. That email gets sent out automatically when your tracking number exists. So basically, what they did was just print a label, but they haven't actually shipped it yet.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes me feel better.
You can
Yeah.
buy it mint in condition and then don't like purchase it. I mean, I guess there's other little ways. Like if a lot of emulators have a speed up function, right? That isn't in the base game. Like, is that playing a video game quote unquote incorrectly? If I hit tab and let the Pokemon battle grinding go at
are we going to
500% speed?
The Mega Man Legacy Collection on Switch, there's a rewind function, and that's how I got through those games.
I was about to ask,
which
rewind
is
save
slightly,
states.
That's an evolution of emulator functions. Like save states also is on all Nintendo Switch Online stuff, and rewind on a lot of it.
Yeah, and then Mega Man X didn't have it, and it forced me to start getting good.
Well, and then also like with remakes, right? Like Mega Man Zero, the first video game specifically, notorious on this podcast, notoriously atrocious save system. But they put in the remake, they put in this, these little save points that automatically happen, and they're optional. You can turn them off. But is using those, it's against the original intent of the original game, but now it is part of the original intent of the current people in charge of the video game, right? Like, does that change it?
You're really struggling with that sentence there.
It made sense to me. If anyone's struggling, it's just you.
Yes.
Skill issue. Get good.
Skill. Podcaster diff. GG no re.
GG no Rizzi.
Oh. Ouch, my heart.
I think what
was the
other
question?
emulator, like,
Wait, what was the question?
speed up. I'm trying to think of other like emulator functions are similar that are
Oh,
like
I did.
wrong ways.
When I played Smite, there is a randomizer. There's a like a random wheel for choosing your god. I used that with my friends. That was fun.
But is that not built into the game?
No, not at all. As far as
Oh,
I.
it's like an external like website.
Yeah,
or
I went to the
something?
website, and
Ah, I
before
see,
every
okay.
match, I would spin the wheel.
Here's a question.
Would
you qualify Prince of Persia: Sands of Time to be the first use of a rewind function?
I don't think so.
I wouldn't, because I wouldn't know if it was the first one to do it.
Yeah, I feel like it can't be. There has to be something before that. But it was good in that game. I did enjoy. No, wait, I did
popularized the idea.
Prince of Persia, the Dark Sand. No, what was the one after Sands of Time?
There were so many.
The
There was
two
Forgotten
Dark
Sands,
Princes. There's
Warrior
like an evil
Within.
version of him, and you get to turn into it. Werehog, Prince of Persia.
I was gonna say Venom, Prince of Persia.
It's like not the two towers. I don't know.
Two thrones.
The two thrones. That sounds right. Yeah, I played that one, and it has the rewind, and that's fun. The dogs were scary.
Woof.
Something that I missed when we were talking about like the competitive stuff too is like online play for video games that don't have online play, like the competitive Mario Superstar Baseball scene, which is a fun thing that exists. And like you see, like when you really break it down into like competitive play, what does it look like? But I like, with the advent of stuff like Parsec, I mean, like lots of people were playing Mario Party games online, like through emulation, and then now we have it in the actual Switch versions, which I think is interesting. Is there inspiration there? Are they competing with the emulation scene? I don't know. I legitimately don't know if that's like how they factor it in, but like that's interesting. But like technically not the way it's meant to be played. You're meant to play Mario Party next to people until people did it and had fun not doing it like that.
And
then they
drama
made video
queens.
games where you could do it like that.
I miss throwing drinks in people's faces whenever they get a star.
Oh, okay.
What else? What are some other ways you can play video games incorrectly? Have we found them all yet?
I doubt it.
Fighting games, button mashing.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's an interesting angle. Like camping in a
Oh,
shooter,
yeah.
first person shooter. Like, there's strategies that are effective, but then developers end up trying to I mean, I guess, yeah, like there's another angle. This is like MMORPGs have this too, where it's like cheating, like specifically cheating in the video game to like get infinite gold or something. Like that's not how you're meant to play the video game.
Everyone
and
plays
is maybe technically a crime.
In games like Magic the Gathering, you can do infinites that will make, or like Yu-Gi-Oh, you can make your opponent hate you forever.
Everyone plays Grand Theft Auto with cheat codes. It's like,
cheat code. Well, that's different than like cheating in an MMO, I feel.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. There's definitely people that do that.
Well, then we
even
can.
With, like,
oh gosh,
Minecraft's another good one, because I know like some friends of mine's like they first thing they download when they get Minecraft is the X-ray mod.
Yeah, that's one thing. Another thing, you can layer it, right? Like cheating in a speed run.
Whoa.
So you're already playing a game in a way it's not meant to be played, and you're cheating. It's two levels of doing it incorrectly, with on the opposite ends of the moral spectrum.
Oh, wait, here's a good
clout.
one. I may lose some cred here, but Tears of the Kingdom. I played a good majority of that.
Jenny's the only person who doesn't like Tears of the Kingdom, John.
No, it's the
no.
Here's gonna make people angry for some reason.
Yeah, when I played it, a good amount of time to avoid grinding for items and whatnot, I used and abused the duplication glitch a lot to duplicate all the items. You guys remember that? Yeah. It's like, oh, you need like 20 like dragon fangs on this. But it's like, well, I have one. There's a duplication glitch that's really easy to do. oh, look, I suddenly have 30. Because I do not want to spend another 2 hours trying to get more Dragon Fangs.
I mean, there's also, like, you know, when games have difficulty settings and people are like, well, you're not really playing the video game if you play it on the easiest difficulty setting.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and so, like, those people would say that you're playing the game incorrectly. It's like, is the duplication glitch also, like, effectively a difficulty slider? Also, like, difficulty sliders have gotten more complicated. Like,
yeah.
It's like I think
it's like, is it really difficult or is it just take up time? And for me, it was just a means of like, oh, this is just to take up time. It's not like based on skill. It's not like it takes a lot of skill to get a Dragon Fang. It just takes a long time to get them.
Yeah. Well, also, like, you know, there's arguments of that with people using save states, right? Like, it's where it's like, well, I've already completed this part of the game successfully. Like, why do I need to do it again just because I don't know how to do this part? But then there's also, like, sometimes, you know, again, like, there's lots of games where if you start over, you may be able to get back to the part that was giving you trouble with more resources than you did the first time through. And sometimes I feel like, you know, you got the sunk cost fallacy, right? Like, sometimes it can be beneficial for a game to, like, take matters into its own hands and kick you out of the current state to overwrite the sunk cost fallacy that you would otherwise have, right? I think about it with Mega Man, where, like, I do think it can be kind of frustrating where it's like literally the only thing you can do is just do it all over again. But like in Mega Man, you know, if you're trying to play a level and then you get a game over and you get sent back to before your checkpoint, you have the opportunity to do something like, well, maybe I'll try a different level. Whereas if you were always getting sent back to the same checkpoint, you might be like, well, I have this checkpoint. I don't want to abandon that at this point. Even if you would actually have more fun trying another level, getting a weapon there, and then coming back to this section and being able to complete it more easily. So, like, sometimes the stuff that people would do, quote-unquote, incorrectly to have a better... I'm not saying that's what you're doing in this case. I think your case is a little bit more clear-cut, but it makes me think about cases where sometimes what you think would be more fun is not necessarily actually true, or what you think is, you know, what you would do if you had the ability to choose is not actually what would be the most fun for the video game. And if you can cheat, quote-unquote, cheat your way around that, then you may end up, now we're playing the video game incorrectly and having a worse time. And maybe you don't even realize it in that case. Like sometimes, I mean, usually I think in those situations, people don't realize, like they're not trying to have a bad time on purpose. But, you know, you get what I'm saying, I think. A bit. I lost the plot a little bit at the end there, but I think I made my general point.
Now, how do we watch movies incorrectly?
I watched one of the Twilight movies with a group of people at like 1.25 speed, and it sounded like a normal movie.
I bet it was edited like one too.
Yeah, it was just, the movie itself is just so slow that like at 1.25 speed, it just feels like a normal movie.
We did that with a small handful of movies in college, because we watch bad movies all the time, like on purpose, just like really crappy, like slasher movies we'll find on YouTube. And then like nothing would happen for like an hour long. We're like, okay, either we pick another movie or we speed run through this thing.
Blue.
Yeah.
Blu Ryder.
Yeah.
What video game have you been playing incorrectly in recent times?
Recently, it's just the Resident Evil, I think. But I've been playing other games not incorrectly.
Illegal. And therefore you can talk about it.
Because it's correct. If it's incorrect, that's... If it's incorrect, yeah.
It's inside of correct.
Correct. I tried out Windblown. That's in early access right now. It's the new roguelike by the people who made Dead Cells, which I've never played. But Windblown is really good. I played it with a few friends and definitely recommend it. It reminds me a lot of Skylanders, actually. It's like if Skylanders had the gameplay of Hades.
How many toys do you have to buy to play the game?
None. 0.
And it's not really like Skylanders, is it?
Well, though, like, the aesthetic in the world, like, you get There's giant fish with balloons, and you feed them your coins, and they flop all funny. It's nice, and then they float away. And then there's like a big tornado in floating islands. It's very Skylanders core. If anyone has played Skylanders, you probably know what I'm talking about.
I've only seen bits and pieces of Skylanders. I don't actually know what the video game is like. Were you a big Skylanders head, Blue?
Yeah, I'd say I was.
I feel like
what's the most money you spent on a figure?
The podcast
to
dissect that.
I played like half of them. There were like 6 in total, I think.
What's the most money you spent on a figure? I say with a gun to your head.
I don't... What were they, like? $20?
John, it's not going to mean anything to you. They're going to be in Canada dollars.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I don't know.
No, I have price charting on right now. It has a currency converter.
I assume...
Yeah, but this was...
It was like $20 in 2012? I don't know.
You didn't go crazy. That's good.
Well, how much is $12 now? $12 could be like
it's probably $100 now, but back then it was reasonable. They were retail. I don't know.
Now instead of
small.
retail,
I didn't have a job.
Nile.
Let's see.
Oh, I thought you were saying like Nile, like none, which was weird but interesting. Oh,
inflation counter makes that around 1566.
I know a game.
Wow. $1,566.
I know, right?
A game I will be playing is Marvel Rivals, and so I have to get everything I want. Everything I want to do, I have to do before December 6th. So all the GameCola, I have to edit Resident Evil and stuff and get that set to upload before December 6th, or else it will never get done.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to get
except play Marvel Rivals.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get that big project on
of Marvel Rivals.
Maybe
GameCola.
We'll see. If
I don't know how many of our loyal Mario 2 playthrough watchers will be interested.
Well, I'll just bring in a new generation of GameCola fans, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, the big project I've been working on for months, I guess I should get that done sometime in the next 2 weeks.
Probably. I mean, it's already basically done.
Yeah.
You're in the creative savant stage where you're just doing little tweaks to it over and over again.
Yeah.
I feel like you're doing creative tweaks to something that's already good and pretty much done. So I think you could probably just release it whenever you feel like it.
Yeah, that's true.
John.
Yes.
Not Nathan.
Yes.
What video games have you been playing incorrectly in recent times?
Actually, I got a few here that actually can qualify into playing incorrectly as well. Let's see. Well, first, just in between when I'm editing and whatnot, just to get my brain going, I play a bit of Picross on the Switch.
Wait, which kind of Picross?
Mario Ross's?
Super Picross?
Picross S, but this is the Sega Genesis and Master System edition.
Wouldn't that just be Picross?
I didn't name the thing. But yeah, this is the Sega Genesis like Master System like edition and whatnot, where you put together a bunch of 16-bit sprites, and it's fun. But that you can technically also qualify as playing incorrectly, because those games give you a lot of like, they have a big hint system, or if you I think this block goes here, it says no, and then it gives you a time penalty. But it's like you can like abuse that a lot to just solve the puzzle quicker. So I feel like that's like solving it incorrectly.
Hint coins.
I try not to do that. But yeah, no, it's a Picross game. It's fun. It's brain teasing, and
I found another way to play a game wrong. In Ace Attorney, I always think like 5 steps ahead of the game, and so
wait. Funny story. That was my next one, because I've also been playing the Ace Attorney Investigations collection, and it has its own achievements where it's like, oh, beat this case, Find this
Checkmate.
Easter egg. Do this. Get this line of dialogue.
En
En
passant.
passant.
Yeah. But the game, since it's a collection, and it's assuming like most of the people buying it have played the originals before, has a checkpoint system where you can start any case at any point in the case itself, at any checkpoint that it gives you. So it's very easy to load it from the last checkpoint in that case, go through that cross-examination or present the right evidence, and just get the achievement for completing that case overall.
Hmm.
And then
how many of them have you done that for?
only one, because I was playing through the first game and I was like, oh my god, I don't want to do Turnabout Ablaze again, because that is such a long-winded, boring, and honestly one of the worst cases to me in Ace Attorney.
Why does every Ace Attorney game, according to the people who like this series, every single one has a case? And mind you, a case is like at least a sixth of the game, of the video game. Every single one has something where it's like, this is terrible. This is the worst thing I've ever experienced.
Hot take?
I love
didn't
this
hate
video game
Turnabout Big
series.
Top.
Well, yeah,
Sorry.
I was gonna say I don't hate Turnabout Big Top either, but
Ha! Take that, everyone else at GameCola.
But for me, it's pacing.
Apollo Justice sheds a single tear.
For me, it's pacing. It's like there's like some moments in like Turnabout Big Top and like even like Turnabout Goodbyes and whatnot where it's like, okay, I don't know what to do next. But that's just a design perspective. It's like oh, I forgot to click this thing. That's fine. Turnabout Ablaze, there are multiple instances where they talk about the same thing over and over again. They flash back to something that was said 5 seconds ago. They reword it. There was like a playthrough I watched where it's like, this game will always say, will always use 1,000 words when 10 will do. It is so long-winded and honestly kind of a boring case overall. And it's like, it's so, and the way like the murder plays out is so overly convoluted and just bizarre to solve. It's like, who in their right mind would think to do all of this for a murder? Unless
like
you're
chess.
this is just the first game I'm thinking about. It's just this case in particular. And then like the kidnap turnabout, the third case is also kind of boring and weird, where actually in that case specifically, the culprit confesses, I think halfway through the case. But Edgeworth is like, but how did you do this? But how did you do that? It's like, he just confessed. Why do you care? To put him away. Arrest him now. What is wrong with you?
Well, he's not the accused, so if you don't prove every single little detail, the other person goes to jail. That is how it works in Ace Attorney.
But he confessed.
Yeah, but you didn't prove he didn't do nothing else, and you didn't prove the defendant didn't teleport in and kill him and make the mind control the person confessing into confessing, so obviously it's the accused.
There are also multiple instances in the series where your client confesses because it's like they're pressured to doing it, and half the people are like, yeah, he's going away. It's like, case closed, he confessed. And you're like, no! That only goes on because of you persisting. It's so weird. But anyway, going back to playing it wrongly. Yeah, it's just really easy to exploit. I'm not sure if it is on PlayStation. If it is on PlayStation for their trophies.
It is.
But I have it on Switch and it has its own like achievements section in the menu. There's actually, when we did Great Ace Attorney on the channel, I was like, oh my god, there's achievements on this version. I got the Switch version to specifically avoid trophies. But yeah, that's one way you can play it incorrectly. Just go through it. Just skip all the scenes you don't like in a story-based game. That's all about paying attention to the story.
And chess.
And chess.
What were you saying? I wasn't listening.
That's how you podcast wrong.
Another game I've been playing was the Silent Hill 2 remake. That one's a lot harder to play incorrectly because You have to go. I guess the only way you can play it incorrectly is cheating at the puzzles. There is an achievement though, where at the beginning of the game, if you just walk in the opposite direction down the road away from Silent Hill, you'll hit an invisible wall, and the achievement will come up. You're like, well, you tried. You tried leaving Silent Hill. I always love achievements like that, where it's just like little fun things you can get. I think Shenmue has one where after your father is killed, and it's like, and the character's like, I'm gonna go find out who did it and avenge my father. And then the first thing you can do to get this achievement is walk up to the phone and call 911. and the trophy comes up, says, the sensible thing to do. But yeah. Joe, what video games have you been playing in recent time that have not been Pokemon or Mega Man? Also incorrectly, yes.
I've sat down. It's like, you know what? I've been spending too much time playing games that I thought I might like and ended up not liking that much. I might still finish Golden Sun, but I might have some time to do that. But I said, like, I'm just going to sit down. I saw a clip of this game on YouTube, and I was like, you know what? I remember this game. I remember liking this game. I'm going to pull it up and see if it's still good. And it was. And the video game was Baba Is You.
That one's so good.
The puzzle game where you've got text words that change the game state, and you have to push around the text words to, like, solve the puzzle. And it is still good. And it's a game, it's sort of on theme in that, like, playing the game feels like you're playing a video game incorrectly, because you're kind of, like, breaking the logic of everything as you move the text words around. It was interesting, like, going back through, because I just went to my same old save file, but you could, like, replay the levels. And it's like, well, I don't want to jump straight back into the hardest puzzles in the game. So I just, like, started by going through the early levels again, just to, like, warm my brain up. And then I got to, like, the first level that I had skipped over, because you don't have to beat every level to sort of, like, continue through the progression of the game. And then I was like, oh, I can beat this level now. Like, my brain is just in a better space for it, I guess. So that was cool. And, like, it's an interesting kind of puzzle game, because I feel like one of the problems with, like, replaying puzzle games is that, they're not as much fun if you know the solution. But with Baba Is You, just the way that it's structured, it feels like remembering the solution is a lot harder, because it's not like this clear one answer thing. And so you can remember a lot of, like, the general concepts of what you need to do, but I'm still not, like, encountering puzzles and being like, oh yeah, I remember this puzzle, I remember what to do. So it's like kind of getting to experience the game for the first time again, but, like, still having this sort of the rough understanding of some of the higher level concepts that you had to be sort of introduced to one at a time the first time through. So yeah, it's been fun. I might fiddle around with it a little bit more until I get to the hard puzzles again and get frustrated again and stop. We'll see. But yeah, it is a good video game, and I kind of feel like it deserves to be in the conversation more than it is. It kind of felt like it was a more temporary game. It was like kind of like, oh, the indie game that people play right now.
Yeah.
And I feel like it didn't stick around as much as maybe I think it kind of deserved to continue being a part of, like, the conversation.
It does, like, have a sequel.
Puzzle games. It does?
Mobile Suit Baba.
Mobile Suit Baba.
That's why you haven't heard of it, because you have no idea it's a Baba's Disease.
I will find it for you. It's pretty good. It's like Into the Breach, but more friendly.
So it's a different game, basically a different game that
it's a sequel,
like the Baba.
It's a different game.
Well, I know it's a different game, but, like, is it a completely different genre?
Yeah, it's still a puzzle game. Yeah, but it's...
But you push text around?
Not quite. It's...
I'll have to look, but it might not scratch the same itch, but maybe I'll play it.
It's good. When I play Baba Is You, it's Baba Is Blue.
This is true, because Blue is you.
Dabba-dee-dabba-die.
No.
Roses are red.
Baba is
blue.
blue.
Roses are red.
Water is stop. Door is open.
You know what else is stop? GameCola podcast is stop. For now. Because it's the end of this episode of the GameCola podcast. Thank you for listening to this episode of the GameCola podcast. If you like what you heard, please do the correct thing, not the incorrect thing. And check us out on our actual internet website, GameCola.net, or our YouTube channel, GCDotNet. The letter G, the letter C, the word dot, the word net. Please do that incorrectly. No, do it correctly. I misspoke. No!
Just end the podcast there.
I evaporated in incorrectness. We're not on Twitter. I'm going to try to convince Jetty to put us on Blue Sky or something. I have a Blue Sky. A couple other GameCola people have Blue Skies. You can probably find it. If you go to the Discord, we can tell you about it.
I don't even know what that is.
It's like a different Twitter. It's not as bad as Twitter.
Wasn't that just Threads?
No, Threads was worse than Twitter somehow, based on what I heard. I didn't ever actually use it, but Blue Sky, people on Blue Sky seem to like it. I don't know. I've never heard anyone like Threads.
I always get those notifications.
Anyway.
These people want to follow you on Threads. I'm like, no, they don't.
So, we'll figure that out. But find us on the Discord. It's in the YouTube description. It's on the website. You can join the Discord. Have a good time with cool people like us. Joseph Martin, Blu Ryder, and John Rizzi. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we end the podcast?
You think I'm cool?
Thank you for listening
to the beginning of the GameCola podcast.
Have a wonderful time, wherever it is, whenever it is, when you're listening to this podcast, and we will see you next month. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Podcast.
Do.